Hello and Jai Jineendra to everyone. I shall start this session by reciting the Namokar mantra first. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayaryanam, Namo Ujjayanam, Namo Laye Sav Sahunam. Eso Panch Namo Karo, Savve Papa Panasano, Mangaladam Cha Savve Sim, Parmam Havai Mangalam. Welcome again. My name is Soumya Saxena. And today I'll be hosting this session with very renowned filmmaker and professor Benoy K Behl ji. Before I start, I would like to tell you about ancient Jainism. Ancient Jainism is an initiative to spread awareness on Jain history, heritage, archaeology, and literature, and another related aspects of Jain religion. For this, we organize online sessions which are open to all and they revolve around interesting topics that cover fascinating aspects of the Jain world. We are very proud to inform you that we have had the honor of hosting eminent scholars like Dr. Hampa Nagarajya, Dr. M.N.P. Tiwari, and along with other scholars and students who have done research on Jainism. To get regular updates from us, you can join our Instagram page and subscribe to our YouTube channel under the name of Ancient Jainism itself. And I would now like to give the floor to Ocean to introduce our speaker, Professor Benoy ji. Ocean, can you hear me?
Am I audible?
Yes, Ocean, please go on.
Yes. So it's my honor to introduce an art historian of such a great caliber as Professor Benoy K Behl, sir. Professor Benoy K Behl is a filmmaker, art historian, and photographer who is known for his tireless and prolific output of work over the past 48 years. He has taken over 53,000 photographs of Asian monuments and art heritage and made 146 documentaries, which are regularly screened at major cultural institutions worldwide. His photographic exhibitions have been warmly received in more than 74 countries around the world. And from 2001 till 2020, when the last Limca Book of World Records was published, he has held the Limca Book record for being the most traveled photographer and art historian. Professor Behl has been invited to lecture by many of the important universities and museums around the world who have departments of Asian art. He has delivered hundreds of lectures for 246 institutions in 36 countries. His book on the Ajanta Caves is published by Thames and Hudson, London, and Harry and Abraham Lawn, New York. It has been in continuous print since 1998, and a latest edition has come out in 2023, which includes in it digital restoration of masterpieces of Ajanta, which Professor Behl has personally carried out. His recent books include The Art of India, Sculpture and Mural Painting in 2 volumes, Buddhism, The Path of Compassion on the Buddhist Heritage of the World, and Hindu Deities Worshipped in Japan. Professor Behl is an adjunct professor at National Institute of Advanced Studies.
Before I begins the session, let me give you a brief introduction of what this session is all about. Professor Benoy will speak to us and will share his film Roots in Sacred Art, which cover Buddhist and Jain manuscript paintings. This is a rare film, and it is an archive of images of some of the finest Jain manuscripts paintings from collections and museums, both in India and also in the US and the UK. Apart from this, the Jain manuscript paintings are lively and vibrant, with animated gestures and rhythmic movements and figures that possess a life of their own. Professor Benoy will take us through the enchanting world of miniature paintings in India, exploring the history, mythology, and all the fascinating aspects of the miniature painting tradition of Buddhist and Jain traditions in India. So without waiting any further, I invite Professor Behl to kindly take the floor and lead us through this journey. Please, sir, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Such a pleasure to be invited by Ancient Jainism to speak on Jain heritage. The Jains, the followers of the Tirthankars, the followers of the Jinnah, the victor over the fears and victor over the attachments, including the finer attachment, that of life itself. Most marvelous. What a great philosophic system this has always been. In fact, I have been a great admirer of Jain thought, both for its infinite gentleness and compassion for the whole universe, and also for its ardent vigor of intellectual approach. It's been always wonderful to look upon the Jain, both philosophic heritage and art. Now, many are not aware that many are not aware of many aspects of Jain art. How many know that the Jains in the BC period had as many stupas as the Buddhists? As a matter of fact, many are under the impression that the stupa is just a Buddhist monument. But in fact, if you were to visit the Mathura Museum or you were to visit the Lucknow Museum, you would see many remnants from the glorious Jain stupas of ancient times. And these were very much like the Buddhist stupas, with beautiful toranas and marvelous sculpture on them. How many are aware that deities such as Gajalakshmi, Lakshmi, and Saraswati were first seen both in Buddhist and in Jain stupa railings? So there is so much about the extremely rich and wonderful Jain heritage which is not well known. In fact, the paintings of Sittanavasan of about the 8th century CE are perhaps the gentlest. The expressions on the faces of the figures there are the gentlest and the most tender expressions that you will see anywhere in the entire realm of world art. It is most beautiful to see them. And these are paintings of the followers gathering lotuses. And the lotuses are made as large as the human figures. And they're made with as much tender care and loving devotion by the artist as the human figures. It's a rare and beautiful example of this tenderness and gentleness of the Jain tradition, which I have always lost my heart to completely. And as paintings go, the beginning of the medieval tradition, the medieval idiom in Indian paintings begins with the Jains, begins with the 8th, 9th century paintings seen at Ellora. That is where the first time the more linear abstractions come in. It is subsequently seen in other mural paintings around India and in other parts of Asia which reflect the Indian tradition. And it is also seen in the vast numbers of Jain manuscript paintings. And how many are aware that it is the Jain manuscript paintings which are the deepest roots and the most direct roots for all the Indian miniatures to come in future years, in future centuries. So it is indeed a very great pleasure for me to be with all of you today and to speak about Jain heritage and to bring before you my film, which is part of my series of 26 films on the paintings of India. And my deep gratitude also to Doordarshan for sponsoring my work on such serious and research subjects. In a world today which is so commercial, it has been marvelous that Doordarshan over all the decades has sponsored my work on extremely serious subjects. So, ladies and gentlemen, with my thanks to Mr. Saurabh Jain for his kind invitation, I take pleasure in requesting Soumya to please run the film now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I will be starting the movie.
Art is the reshaping of reality by man to present it in an understandable way. As the artist recreates the world around him, it is shaped by how he sees it and what he believes in. The Indian artist did not attempt to depict only the material reality around him. He wished to share the complete experience of the moment, not just the photographic presentation of the shapes around him. Beauty for the Indian artist has been a reflection of the glory of God. In fact, for the ancient artist, the experience of beauty, the ecstasy on seeing nature or art which is truly beautiful, has been considered as akin to Brahmanand or the final bliss. Join us on this journey into the heart of the Indian tradition of painting. Come with us to the gorge of the Vaghora river, where Ajanta was created, to the courts of the Mughals and the Deccani Sultans. Journey with us through the deserts of Rajasthan and the icy lands of Ladakh and Lahore Spiti. In the verdant south and in the gentle hills of the north, experience the compassionate view of life that is enshrined in Indian painting.
Man needs to believe in something. Life has so many questions and so much pain that he needs to look forward to something that is better and beyond. An understanding which makes sense out of the seeming confusion of existence. When he believes in something, there is peace within him. This is communicated in his works of art, which are the deepest expressions of his feelings. The ancient Indian treatise on painting, the Chitra Sutra of the Vishnu Dharmottara Puran, states that paintings which are made with an understanding of the harmony of life have a beneficial influence upon the onlooker. It is this deep understanding and vision of life which ancient Indian art shares with us.
The best art of the world carries this feeling, one of the sharing of harmony, even of love. The great art of Ajanta takes us to such an enchanted place, where the ceaseless turmoil of the world is at last still.
The figures painted by the artist are in the midst of the world, but their look, their attention is within. And when there is peace, within that, beauty and solace can be found. The task of painting envisaged in the ancient treatise of Indian art is to achieve that very aim. Beauty is, after all, a reflection of divinity that soothes the pain of mankind. No less than this was the avowed aim of the painter in ancient times. Art in ancient India was deeply connected to religious belief. The earliest surviving paintings in India are of the Buddhist faith. From the grand murals of Ajanta, we see art which enshrines the gentlest thoughts and the deepest feelings of compassion. Buddhism, which arose in the 6th century BC, was a great stream of compassion from which some of the most sublime art of the world was born. The art of Ajanta, with its graceful bodhisattvas, or the seekers of truth painted upon the walls, represents perhaps man's greatest achievement in the depiction of the life within. The life of the soul of man within his ephemeral body. With the development of Vajrayana Buddhism in the great universities of Nalanda and Vikramshila in eastern India, the art of Buddhism entered another exquisite phase. At these great centers of learning, the attributes of the Buddha were carefully analyzed and understood. Many deities were created who embody the qualities of the Buddha. The philosophy of Vajrayana offered its own path to the devotee to develop compassion and thus aspire towards Buddhahood. The worshipper identifies himself with a particular form of the Buddha until he becomes that very form. Paintings serve as visual aids in the process of identification and transformation. The worshipper concentrates on the deity and in the process loses himself, taking on instead all the qualities that the deity enshrines. Paintings were thus extremely important as they were an integral part of religious practice. In the first millennium, Eastern India was the great center of Buddhism in the world. Scholars and pilgrims constantly came here from all the countries of Asia. During the reign of the Palas, from the 8th to the 12th centuries, painted manuscripts were made in vast numbers in Eastern India. In the Vajrayana Buddhism of this period, the path to liberation was believed to be through the understanding and imbibing of the virtues of the Buddha. The Pragya Paramita was the most revered text of the Vajrayana Buddhists. These texts were written on seasoned palm leaves, and spaces were left by the scribe for the paintings. The paintings are depictions of the Buddha, Buddhist deities, and the Jatak tales of the previous lives of the Buddha. The book of the Pragya Paramita was conceived to be the transcendent body of the goddess, Pragya, or wisdom. The sacred text itself thus came to be worshipped and venerated as a goddess. This is a unique occurrence that a book came to be revered as a deity. The artist who painted the sacred deities within the book performed an act of devotion. The name of the patron who commissioned the making of these texts in order to gain merit is mentioned in the manuscripts. The scribe's name is also mentioned. He first inscribed the written word and left spaces which were then painted by the artist. However, the artist, true to the great Indian tradition, remains anonymous. For him it is enough that he fulfills his duty his function in life, of painting, in a way only he knew how. Personal vanity or gains played no part in this. The artist was, in painting the images of deities, performing an act of the highest devotion. Since the paintings of the deities were believed to embody the very qualities of the deity depicted, great care was taken while painting them. The images in Buddhist art adhered to the strictest norms of iconography. The painter's role was more than just mere depiction. It is through these images that the details of iconography were maintained through the centuries. Not even the monks knew the complete details in the manner that was known to the painters. These paintings bring to us our only knowledge of many Buddhist deities about whom we do not have any written record. The paintings do not directly illustrate the text. They exist independently as sacred symbols with magical potency. Vajrayana Buddhist rules seem to have guided not only the depictions of deities, but also their placement in the text. The paintings are not spread throughout the text, but appear in the beginning, middle, and end. The paintings in the Buddhist illustrated manuscripts of the Pal period are extremely close to the great murals of Ajanta. The tradition seems to have come down directly from the cave walls onto these narrow palm leaves. The same harmonious blending of plastic and linear qualities is seen here as at Ajanta. Lines flow lyrically, defining the form that they contain. The artist's great skill is apparent in the handling of figures which lilt gracefully. Weight and volume are suggested by tonal variations in color modeling. These are not weighty, earthy beings. They have the serene and sublime beauty that only gods possess. As at Ajanta, the gentle essence of Buddhism is enshrined in the Pala paintings. These paintings take us to an enchanted place, far removed from the noise and clamor of the material world. A world of stillness, whose gentleness and beauty lifts our spirits and our thoughts. The lilting grace of these paintings reminds us that there is an end to the sorrow of the world. In the Pala period, the universities of Nalanda and Vikramshila were the great centers of learning. Their famed libraries had vast archives of revered texts, which attracted scholars from all over Asia. With the destruction of these universities by foreign invaders in the 12th century, Buddhist monks and teachers fled to Nepal and other Himalayan areas. By the end of the 13th century, the creation of art and monuments in North and East India was greatly affected. The art of manuscript painting seems to have disappeared at that time. In the meantime, this tradition had taken roots in the Himalayan areas. Here, protected by the tallest mountains of the world, the making of exquisite Buddhist paintings continued through the medieval period. Along with merchants and missionaries, many Buddhist painters also travelled to Myanmar. Here, thousands of great pagodas were being built by King Anirudh in the 11th and 12th centuries in Bagan. Exquisite mural paintings which are closely similar to the beautiful Pala manuscript paintings were made on the walls of these pagodas. Jainism flourished in India at the same time as Buddhism. Besides Buddhist paintings, the other great stream of paintings which flowed in India through many centuries was that of the Jains. A severe famine in the 5th century AD threatened to break the chain of oral transmission of Jain teachings. At this time, vast numbers of manuscripts were written to preserve and to continue the beliefs and the canons of the Jain faith. Large numbers of painted manuscripts continued to be made thereafter through the entire medieval period. Jainism is divided into two sects, the Digambar, sky-clad, and Shvetambar, white-clad. The large majority of illustrated texts were made by the Shvetambar sect. Since times immemorial, the Jain community has been known for its prosperity and trading activities. Jain merchants were amongst the most prosperous and wealthy in India. They were the great patrons of art and temple building. They generously sponsored the making of large numbers of painted manuscripts, as it was believed that they would gain merit by commissioning these sacred works. Early Jain manuscripts, unlike the Buddhist ones, generally illustrate the accompanying text. The Kalpa Sutra and Kalkacharya were the most popular manuscripts to be illustrated. The Kalpa Sutra describes the life of 4 important Tirthankars or Jain saints. The other popularly illustrated text, the Kalakacharya Katha, is the tale of Kalaka. He was a monk who sought the help of foreign rulers to combat the evil monarch of his land. Interestingly, the foreigners are depicted with narrow eyes and braided hair, quite like Mongols. Here we see Queen Trishala, who will give birth to Mahavir, the great Jain saint. The embryo of Mahavir was miraculously transferred into her womb. On that night she had 14 auspicious dreams. These dreams foretold the birth of Mahavir. We also see paintings depicting Harine Gameshi, who transferred the embryo from Devananda to Queen Trishala. Here we see Lord Indra in his heavenly court. It is he who had sent Harine Gameshi on this mission. In the 10th and 11th century manuscripts, we see both the naturalistic Pala style and the linear style of the Jains. Slowly, the linear tradition with its angular abstractions became the norm. By the end of the 13th century, all traces of Pala modelling, volume and weight had disappeared. The introduction of paper in the 14th century as the popular base for paintings led to changes in the style. Earlier, the compositions had been strictly horizontal, owing to the restrictive, narrow shape of the palm leaf. Now, the artist had a larger surface to work on. The palm leaf manuscripts were held between wooden covers and bound with string. The string holes that had been necessary in the palm leaves came to be painted onto the paper. These gradually became decorative motifs. Border decorations were the first pictorial elements in Jain manuscripts. Even after the introduction of human and animal figures in the manuscripts, the borders continued to provide the artist a space in which he was not bound by religious conventions. Here he was free to paint the world around him. Jain manuscripts offer us a detailed and colorful picture of contemporary life. Stylizations and conventions were developed and used extensively in the Jain paintings. Linear draftsmanship defines the forms. Color is applied in flat washes. The stylized human figures with pointed noses and rounded chins resemble those at Ellora. The Jain manuscript paintings are lively and vibrant. With animated gestures and rhythmic movements, the figures possess a life of their own. The protruding eye, extending beyond the line of the face, adds to the energy in these paintings. The simple and abstracted forms of the figures are delineated with brisk and shore lines. There is a marvelous sense of design which is extremely modern in its appeal. The conventions of painting developed in the early period in these manuscripts continued right through the medieval age in Indian art. This style has come to be known as the Western Indian style of painting, perhaps because its beginnings are seen in the 9th century mural paintings of Ellora. In the early medieval period, with the fading of the classical style in Indian painting, the Western Indian style became dominant across all of India. We see the protruding further eye in paintings as diverse as those in the Buddhist monasteries of Ladakh and in the Hindu temples of the Vijayanagar Empire. From the Jain or Western Indian style of painting also emerged the style which came to be known as the Chaur Panchashika. This style was to become the basis of the schools of Rajasthani miniature paintings, which were to come in later centuries. The Jain and Buddhist traditions of painting are the roots from which many branches of Indian art developed. The styles travelled across the country and were taken beyond its borders by merchants, soldiers, and travellers. The early art of the Jain and Buddhist traditions is among the finest art of mankind. These paintings transcend mere pictorial representation and bring to us a vision of the great harmony of the world. From the gentle and tender images of the parlour paintings to the lively and linear abstractions of the Jain manuscript paintings, we see two great streams in art. The great classic style, coming from the murals of Ajanta, and its transformation into the medieval idiom, which is the foundation of the schools of Indian paintings to come. These are some of the most beautiful flowers of Indian art, and their seeds developed into great traditions of painting in India and many countries of Asia.
It was indeed a wonderful journey to film these many marvelous manuscript paintings across India and in collections in different parts of the world, from the LD Institute of Indology in Ahmedabad till the Brooklyn Museum of Art in New York, from the Rydberg Museum in Zurich to the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, and so many other places. And there was this marvelous cooperation of so many collectors and so many museums, which made it possible to create an archive of the selected finest masterpieces of paintings. And truly, the manuscripts of the Jains and the manuscripts of the Buddhists are among the most valuable treasures that India possesses. And as was said in the film, you would note that these Jain paintings are in fact the basis of all the later miniature paintings, the Rajput paintings, and so many other miniature paintings to come in later years. And many are not aware of that. They should be aware. In fact, how many are aware that the most beautiful town is seemingly of temples is Palitana or Shatrujaya Hill, a wonderful Jain paradise where you climb up perhaps it is about almost 4,000 steps you take climbing up, and you go up, you go above the clouds, and there it is like a city of temples, a glorious place. Truly, Jain heritage should be better known. In fact, for the very small percentage of population that the Jains have in India, their contribution, both philosophic and to the art tradition, is very large and quite remarkable. So it was a great pleasure to show this film, and thank you so much, Soumya. You managed to run the film very well, and thank you all so much.
Thank you, sir. It was a visual delight to go through these paintings and hear your voice and all the minute details you were telling us about the paintings and the narration. Everything was brilliant. And the last thing that you said, that such a small section of population was able to make such a monumental contribution that has been lasted for centuries. It's something you cannot really express in words and understand so easily. So, sir, to continue this session further, we received certain questions, and I hope you will be happy to answer them. So, if I may, sir, can I?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Sir, what inspired you to undertake this immense work of documenting this vast heritage of paintings and the traditions behind them?
Well, the inspiration to begin with really was the glorious art of Ajanta. The art was so beautiful, and it was immersed in compassion. It showed me, it revealed to me a world of kindness and compassion, of a great enormity. And subsequently, it became my mission to document art of this great tradition and to share it with people, to show it to the world. So these films, out of which the film of today was a part, is a series called The Paintings of India. It is 26 films, and as I've mentioned before, I'm deeply grateful that Doordarshan agreed to sponsor this project, which was of such a serious nature. And of course, the project was a complete obsession. I and my crew spent 240 days traveling for the shooting of these films. We traveled to practically every corner of India and to 14 countries where we were shooting in museums and shooting reflections of the Indian tradition. The average travel we did by road every day for 240 days was about 200 or 250 kilometers every day. The average wake-up time was 3:30 in the morning, and it was absolutely marvelous. And so it was really, really a great desire to archive, to capture the beauty of this glorious tradition of Indian art, and to take it before the world, a world which had not seen all this.
Yes, sir. So it always remains a conundrum for me that how they were always able to reach to the most nook and corners of this vast country in that age and time when communication and commutation was not, a, not really easy. And still in the minute corners of the country and the world, somehow they have managed to create such magnificent pieces of art. But as we are aware that the artists who made these paintings are unknown, who created these creations are unknown. But do we know that if there were any assigned artists who undertook this work, and whether if they were learning it from somewhere, whether there were schools or whether there were styles they were following, like as you were detailing about the features which many paintings had. So was it deliberate? Was it like something that was taught? And were they Jain and Buddhist necessarily, like the artists?
Right. That is many questions rolled into one. So let me begin with the beginning.
Yes.
It is dedication, an extreme dedication, which made it possible to do such marvelous work, and for the work and the culture of the work, the styles of the work, the themes of the work, for all this to spread to corners, to spread everywhere, to what we consider very remote corners even today.
Yes, sir.
It is all because of concentration. It is all because of dedication. The human being, Soumya, is limitless in his or her capacity, both physically and mentally. It is dedication, it is meditation, it is concentration, which takes us into realms which would be considered impossible. So in fact, with all the communication available today and with all the transport available today, people may or may not be able to go to so many places, as you have noted, they did in those ancient times. So that's the answer to the first thing that you were talking about. And the artists were not necessarily Buddhist or Jain or Hindu.
Yes.
They were guilds of artists. And mind you, art was their dharma. It was what was the purpose of art in the Indian tradition, in the Indian philosophy of aesthetics. It is believed that the moment of the aesthetic experience, when you respond to something truly beautiful, is like a glimpse of Brahmanand itself. It is a moment in which the veils of illusion of Maya or Mithya are lifted, and you are seeing the grace which underlies all that there is. And that was the purpose of the artist always, to bring that grace which underlies all that there is, which is within all that there is, to clear up, to remove the noise and clamor of the material world which surrounds us all the time, to remove our confusions, and for us to be able to catch a glimpse of that which is true and truly beautiful. So the same artists would have in fact been painting for the Jain tradition, the Buddhist tradition, the Hindu tradition. And such was their heritage. And the knowledge was passed on through the guilds. And talking about names not being known, that is the greatness of this art, and that's the greatness of ancient Indic philosophy. The ephemeral personality, you and I, our personalities, our names, are the least important of things. It is the ideas which are important, the ideas of the finest intellectuals, the ideas of the finest minds are are collected in a bouquet of exquisite flowers, and these is what is are what is passed on. It is not the personality. As a matter of fact, to be able to catch a glimpse of the truth, you have to lose the sense of personality. You have to lose the selfishness of the self. Therefore, the artist did not write his name upon the paintings. And the idea was not to achieve any fame or greatness. It is money, fame, or greatness which in fact take away from art, which is why it is very difficult to have great art today. It is art for the sake of the actual revelation of the grace of existence. And that is true art. Thank you.
So there are a few more questions if you are happy to answer them. Like the paintings, they were created centuries ago and they still look very fresh. They still look very like they have not faded and they are still maintaining their sort of original form. What is the reason behind this? And also, sir, I will add one more question to it. How are they being preserved today?
Right. Now, the paintings retain their colors and, as you say, freshness, because the colors are also made with the same dedication, the same purity, the same scientific understanding which has been put into it as the painting itself. So therefore, you must understand, in today's world, we are used to using paints which are made by commercial companies, whose
Yes.
first and main purpose is always profit. Whereas these painters are using colors which are made for a divine purpose. There is no limit to the amount of effort. There is no limit to the amount of time. There is no limit to the amount of the use of the right materials which was used. And also there is a deep and scientific understanding. There is a lot of research behind it. Therefore, as you say, the colors reach you even today. Sorry, what was the other part of the
So,
question?
how are they being preserved today? Like, are there being enough efforts to make sure that they don't perish in some or the other way?
The paintings that you saw here are all paintings which are part of museum and other important private collections. So they are being preserved, fortunately.
And also, sir, can you please tell us how these centuries-old manuscripts were taken care of, like both in the past and even now, especially when we talk about leaves and perishable materials like the papyrus. So how they are still being, how they were preserved back then?
Well, they were considered sacred, so they were treated with a great deal of care. And there was a good traditional understanding also of how to keep them. And yes, that is the main reason is the fact that they were treated as sacred, and therefore there is great care behind it. Of course, these are only a small number out of the many thousands and thousands, in fact, hundreds of thousands, which would originally have been created. And many have got destroyed because of the passage of time. It is many centuries which have passed.
So do you see any major difference between the Jain and the Buddhist art traditions? Like as a lay person, can I um, um, differentiate between the two?
Well, it is a differentiation which you see mainly with the passage of time. The early Buddhist paintings and the earliest Jain manuscript paintings which survive are of a gentle and naturalistic style. But then the medieval idiom of painting comes in, and it comes in with the Jain tradition. And this is something which is deeply influenced by the shift of focus to the intellectual activity. So there's a new energy in the paintings, which you see in the Jain paintings. There's a new energy in the paintings. There is a linear abstraction. There is, you see the protruding further eye, which also conveys greater energy. And there is much more abstraction. So that is what leads later to the development of other forms of miniature paintings in India, which is why I was pointing out that the Jain tradition is in fact the most direct roots of all of the later miniature paintings to come in India. And thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure. And I would also like to thank my colleague and beloved Sujata Chatterjee, who's here next to me and who's always made it possible for me to do all my work. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I would now request Ocean to please come forward and present a vote of thanks to sir for his valuable inputs today. Ocean, you are muted.
No. Yeah. Hello, Soumya. Yeah. So, for the vote of thanks, I am very grateful to Professor Benoy for accepting our invitation to join us this evening to present his film, Roots of Sacred Art, and deliver a talk on the ancient manuscript tradition of Jains and Buddhists in India. I have watched several documentaries about India's heritage and culture that have been made by Professor Benoy. What particularly struck me is the versatility of work in which Benoy sir is involved. His films on India's heritage not only let us behold the many historical and cultural sites, but also almost transfer us from wherever we are to those places. The soothing voice and narration explain the canonical, folk, and historical significance of the monuments, sculptures, and paintings. We know that Professor Benoy has traveled extensively throughout India and the world to document several sites that reflect the significance and extensive influence of Indian religions, philosophy, and art in their various facets. Art in India developed not in the watertight compartments of religions and sects, but with some common guiding beliefs and aesthetics. The two Shraman traditions of India, Buddhism and Jainism, have valued soterical knowledge, and these manuscripts are the repository of such knowledge. What made them all the very more divine are the miniature paintings that adorn them and transform them almost into objects of worship. Certainly, the divine side, or darshan as referred in the Indic tradition, of these pious paintings has given us an opportunity to earn some merit. I am very sure that the participants, including students, scholars, and laymen, have found this session very beneficial, one that has captivated us and introduced us to a world from which our present traditions, culture, and beliefs have been derived. Sir, Benoy sir, I thank you for the enlightening session today. Your passion for the subject was evident, which elevated the overall experience for everyone here in attendance. We have received numerous positive comments from participants expressing their appreciation for your insights. Also, I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Virat Shah, who has joined this meet, Dr. Renuka Purvalman, and Dr. Shrikant Ganveer for joining us in the event today. And finally, I thank all the participants who have joined us to make this event a success. Thank you. Thank you so much, and Jai Jinavi.
Thank you, sir. And the recording for all our participants, the recording of this session will be available on YouTube.